And welcome to episode 116 of the Noclip podcast. How are you? Episode 115 dropped yesterday, the Two Player Productions one. We're just pumping them out over here. Danny O'Dwyer here, coming live at you from Noclip headquarters, just up the road in Sebastopol. Jeremy Jane, how are you?
I'm wonderful. I just ate an entire bag of French fries.
Jesus.
Yeah.
What type of French fries?
They were shoestring.
I guess French fries are...
It's like the thin ones, which is not my favorite. I prefer like a waffle fry, maybe like a spicy fry, like a really spicy fry, but we had to make two.
No worries. Did you make it yourself?
No, they came from a bag. I ate them with barbecue sauce, and it was delicious. I just was craving French fries.
But did you get them from an establishment?
Yes. I bought a bag of frozen French fries.
Oh, frozen. Okay.
From Whole Foods.
You cooked them yourself. Yeah, that's a good point.
Does that count as cooking them yourself?
That's a good point. Because I was like, did you? I feel like of all the like food, because you live a bit outside of town as well.
Yeah.
And I'm like, on a good day, if I was close to a place, I wouldn't order takeout French fries that were like delivered to me. You know,
they'd be ruined.
Yeah, it's like Mexican food. You just can't.
But on the other hand, if you had a dinner guest over and you said, "Oh, I just got finished making some French fries," I feel like they'd be a little disappointed if you then busted out the freezer fries.
Making, you might get away with.
Cooking is where it gets into dicey territory.
Also, you don't really cook. I guess, yeah, it depends. Frank, when was the last time you made French fries? Sorry.
Never, except if I'm ordering them.
It's incredibly easy. You just chop up some potatoes, skin. It's incredibly easy, but also incredibly laborious for what you can do. I had a friend in when I lived in London. There's this food. It's like the when you're drunk in Ireland at nighttime food, at least in my hometown, is something called a taco chip, and it is French fries. Let me get this right. It's French fries layered with mincemeat, but the mincemeat is in something called taco sauce, which is a incredibly mildly spicy sauce. And then you've got cheese on top, like melted, right? So it's kind of like a French fry, spaghetti, meatball kind of cheese thing, right? And it's absolutely delicious. And when I was living in London, I had a friend over whose buddy was like a top chef in a local restaurant, and he had been out drinking in Waterford before in my hometown, and he came over to our house and made gourmet taco chip. Like, he came over with like all of his like equipment and like potatoes and like fucking sauteed them, and like it was like really good beef, and it was like the most incredible taco chip. It felt wrong almost, because taco chip's supposed to be just like a greasy piece of garbage, but so I was about to say it's really easy to make chips, and they never taste as good as the amount of effort you put into them. But there was that one time, perhaps the exception that proved the rule. Hello and welcome to the Noclip podcast. Massive shout out to all of our amazing Battle Pass holders: James Brown, Jason Drury, Cody Krieger, Sven Huster, Forrest Pruitt, Andy Fegan, all together now, Cameron, George Sikotis, Jacob Godserve, and Tohir Tiliev. And before we jump into the podcast, I want to do a tiny bit of housekeeping, which is this Friday, we are attempting to get 100 players, at least 100 players, into our regular Friday afternoon playtest of Stunt Derby. So if you're a patron, or like, I don't know, you really want to play, and I follow you on Twitter or whatever. If you're really into it, or if you're a patron, it's the easiest thing. Just DM me and I'll send you a key. And if you really, really, really want to play as well, feel free to reach out on Twitter. We're making exceptions here and there. And we're trying to get 100 people to basically test out, does it work, first of all? see how the netcode handles it, see if it's fun, and also just get some crazy viral nonsense of 100 people in a driving game, which is not something you see every day. If you didn't know, Stunt Derby is the game that we're making with Alex Austin, Cryptic Sea, who's the guy behind games like Gish and Bridge Builder and Sub Rosa, and it's a lot of fun and is quickly becoming my favorite game every week. I feel like when we do the playtests, and Jeremy and Frank are usually there as well. Are you guys there out of obligation or fun at this stage? Because it's been like months of this now.
I will say the game is getting better to play with more and more people. Once the physics boxes and stuff are added in. Also, I love all the millions of AI cars. Like it really is legitimately fun. Also, it just reminds me of like Daytona USA or like Ridge Racer, like fun, silly, arcadey action stuff and chaos.
It reminds me of like playing video games with my friends in the basement. Is the vibe of the playtest? Like it's just a bunch of people who like we have a crowd of regulars. There's always a few new people, but it's just like a bunch of people yelling at each other and having a good time. Like I almost would rather lose by a thin margin and have it be a good race than like have a blowout victory.
Yeah, totally. And it's getting more and more that way as well. The lack of how close those races get without there being any like artificial rubber banding or blue shells or any of that shit is like crazy. And like it always seems to come down to like the final lap. Sometimes with like 4 or 5 different teams. Like the last race we did on Crossy Road last week was insane. And it was, I think we came from last to first. I think I was on your team, Jeremy. Yeah, it was insane. And like 2 turns to go. Anyway, head over to hit me up on Patreon if you want a key. It's a Steam key to our alpha for Stunt Derby. But we're here to talk about a bunch of stuff. I played a lot of PSVR2. We'll get to that in a second. But the game du jour at the moment is perhaps no small surprise. The sequel to The Forest, which was a super. I don't want to call it a viral game because that's definitely like selling it short, but it was definitely one of those survival games that was on the tip of everyone's tongue there for a good while. It came out in 2018. Is that? I feel like it was in beta.
It was in early
long
access like
before that.
2013 or 2014 was early access.
I thought it was about 10 years ago. You're right. Because did you do videos at GameSpot on this?
Yeah, so the Lobby, which was like the weekly show that you hosted at GameSpot.
Oh yeah.
I came on. Oh my god, you still have it burned into your brain.
Absolutely.
I came on to do a little segment showing off the forest and just kind of like playing it. And in the original Forest, as well as in Sons of the Forest, there's an island of cannibals, but the behavior of the cannibals is all sort of systemic and randomized. So in the forest, there may not be any cannibals. You could play for like hours and just build camp and collect supplies and never see any enemies.
Right.
And that is precisely what happened live on the air as I was attempting to show people how fun this game was. I was just running around collecting sticks and rocks for 30 minutes.
You didn't see any weird like babies crawling along the ground or
Not
like
a single
three-headed
weird baby.
beasties or you just made a bunch of effigies, did you? Probably.
No, I was like trying to like climb trees and do like I got desperate. I was starting to get like sweaty and nervous as I could feel the eyes of the GameSpot audience upon me.
It's wild. Well, End Night Games is The Forest. Like you said, when I saw 2018, I was like, there's no way that game came out in 2018. I guess it finally exited early access at that stage. But it has a sequel, Sons of the Forest, which is just hit PC, came out on February 23rd, and has, perhaps to no small surprise, although it shocked me, has 63,000 reviews on Steam already.
Yeah, it's a big deal already.
Insane.
I saw a metric that they sold over 2 million copies already. I did not follow up verify that information, but if I recall correctly, it was in the first like 24, 48 hours, something like that. At least the first week.
If it's 63,000 reviews, and we should say it's mostly positive, I think it's at, maybe higher, you got to be, right? You do the tablecloth math if that's like 2% of the people. I don't know, maybe they're super plugged in their community, but yeah, it's very positive. Sorry, it's not very positive.
Yeah.
The regular Forest has 360,000 reviews of overwhelmingly positive.
Good Lord.
Crazy. So yeah, I have not played Sons of the Forest yet. I would say I played 20 hours of the Forest.
Oh, wow.
I got into it, but I didn't get like crazy into it. It's fucking scary.
It is.
I don't
scary.
get scared very much in games, but something about the way you get like kidnapped and brought down into that weird cave is absolutely terrifying to me.
Yeah.
So what's Sons of the Forest like? I guess how do these games play in general, and what's different in the sequel?
Yeah. So the original game, The Forest, it starts out with a first-person cinematic. You're on an airplane. The airplane starts going down. You're with your son. The airplane goes down. Your son is missing when you come to from the concussive force of the crash. And you're basically trying to, like, build shelter, get supplies, get food. All the while, like a normal crafting game, you're just trying to survive against the elements. The Forest has the little unique twist of you're being hunted by cannibals that hop around on all fours. Some of them are, like, mutated. Some of them have extra limbs and stuff and walk like weird spiders and shit. But the thing that was always interesting about The Forest is the interactions with the AI. So in a normal game like this, you kind of just get rushed, like Left 4 Dead. The enemies are not hanging out at the periphery, kind of watching you in Left 4 Dead. They're just rushing in, and that's kind of the fun, is that immediate pressure every time you encounter enemies. In The Forest, as well as in Sons of the Forest, the enemies have sort of like it's like the developers are trying to humanize them almost. Like there's this constant push and pull between you are an outsider in their territory. So you come across like camps in Sons of the Forest where there's a bunch of dudes just hanging out. And when I say dudes, creepy. I mean naked cannibals covered in blood. But when they come up on your camp, like so I played a bunch of this last night, like the first few hours, I'd say. And they scared the shit out of me because they snuck up on me and I heard like a woman's voice go like, ah! And just like screech off in the woods. And it scared the absolute piss out of me. But they were just watching, like they were just hanging out and hopping around, and like they would like amble up like apes and kind of like sniff you and then run away. So I was just trying to like build and hang out and stuff. But at nightfall is when they become more antagonistic. That was also a thing in The Forest, but I'd forgotten about that because I haven't played in a long time. Yeah. So I was playing Sons of the Forest last night and I was like, oh, I'm fine, dude. They're just like maybe I'll just won't start a turf war with them and things will be cool. And then the sun goes down and they start beating the shit out of me.
It's exactly what happens to you when you play Rust. Yes. You're like, just like, be cool. Let's all just live together, man. Yeah. It's all good.
Peace and love, dude. Yeah, also, a side Rust story. If you ever want to get your Rust base totally griefed, put up any sort of socially progressive cause, just make a sign outside of your base. We made a BLM sign and put it on our Rust base, and immediately got destroyed.
You should have done that, but hid in the floors like those guys.
Oh my god, the trap bases?
The trap bases,
yes.
Yeah.
Oh my god, good. Yeah, go to YouTube and search Rust trap base. But
it's a good 30-minute video. Enjoy it. It's pretty wild.
So Sons of the Forest is very similar to The Forest. It's basically better in every conceivable way. It looks absolutely unbelievable. Like I'm one of those people who doesn't really like exploring the woods games because I like to go like hiking and backpacking and camping a lot. And I feel like when I play these games,
you live in the woods.
Yeah, exactly. When I play these games, it often feels like it's kind of just it's like a pale simulation of walking around in the forest. It doesn't have that feeling of like, because the loop of exploring the forest is you walk around, you see something beautiful, and then your natural curiosity is like, oh, I want to go like see what that is and check it out. And that's kind of like what's happening in your brain. It's hard for me to get into a game like that. Even Red Dead Redemption 2, which is such a beautiful game, I just was like, I could spend 2 hours fishing in game, or I could just like go outside. But the forest is like, Sons of the Forest is so gorgeous that I was like, there's this mountain in the distance, and you catch views of it kind of like looming over, and the lighting is so gorgeous. And like,
and then Todd Howard pops up and says, hey, see that mountain?
You could go there.
You can go.
Not only can you go there, but that's where I spawned in the game. So, so the beginning of this is similar, except instead of being in a plane crash with your son, you're like an operator who's in a helicopter with other operators, and you're going to this island to do like an extraction. All you basically see is a laptop with a billionaire and his family's names and pictures on it. So you're going to like investigate something happened to this billionaire's family. You're going to like get them out of here, and then a bunch of bullet holes rip through the helicopter and you crash, right?
Man, they're really good at taking airplanes down, these cannibals.
Just do not fly over any islands that are covered in cannibals. And so, but basically, it plays out almost identically to The Forest. It plays better, it looks better, but essentially you're just going, you're building bases, you can build traps, and kind of just like managing your supplies, trying to stay fed and watered and all these things.
What's the like end game of these games? Yeah. I know I remember The Forest was like fairly opaque about it. Like you weren't really, like you were trying to find your son, but like how you did that, I always felt was not like it was part of that wave of games that were not really showing their cards super obviously about what you're supposed to do.
So that's one of the things I like the most about these games is that the thing that lures you into the story is very hands off. In this game, you do get a GPS that has like points of interest on it, and it has GPS trackers for the other people that were on the helicopter with you, which is cool because you're like tracking down the other like members of the extraction team. But in the original game, it's been years since I played it, but I don't remember having any sort of map like that. Maybe like a paper map or something.
You know what? This is one of the things I wish I had played it since, because I think I don't know about you, but I played it when it was early in early access.
Yeah.
So I wonder if they actually layered in more story or campaign stuff at a certain stage.
Yeah, so
I actually have no idea.
I never finished the campaign or like the story mode. It's all the same mode, but the story in the forest. But last night I looked it up just out of curiosity to like spoil myself on the ending of the forest. And
right.
I won't spoil the ending of the forest, but essentially the way that you progress in the story is throughout the world in both of these games there are these caves everywhere.
Yes.
And in the caves are basically like kind of cryptic hints that push you in the right direction.
That's what I remember. It being that.
and
because I remember them being like, why did they bring me into this cave without killing me?
Yeah.
Because the first time you get captured or whatever,
Yeah.
you would sort of like awake down there and be like, well, I'm getting the fuck out of here because this is horrible.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like one of those weird, like, armless, like, things with the fucking open mouth in its chest coming towards you. And you're like,
This crab walking towards you.
Guillermo del Toro made a video game. Get out.
Does have Guillermo del Toro monster vibes. But yeah, so they have the same thing in this game where the first time you die, you get like it looks like you die, like your health goes to 0, the screen goes black, and then you awaken at like one of their camps. I died a second time and had to restart my save, and then got killed again and woke up at a totally different place too.
Oh, wild.
So some of this stuff is like slightly systemic or randomized or whatever. But yeah, so it's like, but the thing I like about these games is that they're so hands off with the story. And so I think I read through some of the reviews out of curiosity, and the only ones that I saw that were overtly negative towards the game were, I think, people who were kind of expecting the game to give them more breadcrumbing. But I kind of feel like that's a fundamental misunderstanding or like lack of appreciation for what these games do well, which is that like, it invites you to be curious about this world. I think if you're waiting for a game that's going to be like, your name is like John Smith and you're looking for your like daughter who's in this, it doesn't have that. It just wants you to be curious about this world. And then the story, there is a story, but the story that emerges in like the majority of the gameplay is sort of the emergent storytelling of like, you know, it was like I was low on supplies, the cannibals pushed me, I fought them down to the last man. You know what I mean? Like, it's more about your experience. So I played this game solo, but I bet it'd be a blast with friends.
So you can play this co-op, right? And it also has, I saw they have like a sort of it's like a dim-witted AI buddy who you can kind of tell to just go collect wood or something like that.
Yeah, so the diegetic reason I thought this was very clever. After the helicopter crash, your buddy is passed out on the ground, and you revive him, but he seems like super shell-shocked. There's blood pouring out of his ears, and so he's like deaf and shell-shocked. And so the way you interact with him is you pull out a little notebook, and on the notebook
that's too funny.
is a little interface that's like follow, walk, stay, and you kind of like you
cut
scroll
down
through
trees.
them. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You can have them gather resources and stuff, which is actually really nice for like a survival crafting game to be able to automate some degree. But you write it down in the notebook, tear the page off, and then you like pin it on his chest or whatever, like hand it to him. And it's super funny because it's like the guy just kind of looks like dumb and like kind of spaced. I'm trying to say this in a way that doesn't sound insensitive. I think his brain is scrambled by the crash, is what it feels like to me.
It doesn't come off as like some like horrible like ableist thing.
Yeah.
Necessarily.
He's like half
it just
dead.
seems like a cartoonish, sort of dumbish, like, okay.
Yeah.
But like you said, it is a very funny way of creating some sort of automation and also giving the AI like a total like blank check for if it acts stupid.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
It's
kind
the
of
perfect
like
excuse.
Yeah, it's like the AI cars in Stunt Derby, which I've been trying to get Alex to call self-driving cars, because then we can say they're just bad.
That's awesome.
But yeah, that's neat. So one of the things I liked about the original game, which you're sort of reminding me of now, is that like oftentimes you have these games. Oftentimes you are like the stranger in a strange land kind of situations, and it's really like exciting because you have this whole new world to explore, and it's kind of, because it's a video game, it's kind of set up like a theme park where like, you know, just go this way and it's really obvious which direction you go in and la la la. I feel safe, and the thing I liked about the original Forest, and it sounds like is the case here, especially when you're talking about like the forests themselves, the wood, the trees, the wood and the trees in the island. Do you know what a forest is? It's a collection of wooden trees, just in case anyone out there doesn't know what a fucking forest is. Is that it's like it's like a sort of a inverse version of that, where you are a stranger in a strange land, but the last thing you want to do is actually explore.
Yeah.
Like, where instead of being like mollycoddled by the world, like you have to go outside because you need resources, and you have to, like, you know, you're playing a game and you want to advance things and explore, but like every step into the wilderness you take feels like kind of terrifying but exciting at the same time.
Yeah, also like it's not like a World of Warcraft exploration where you aggro an enemy and you're like, all right, let's run until he de-aggroes. I ran into, so after I spawned and like got my bearings a little bit and found a few POIs, I was walking towards the next POI on my GPS, and I walked directly out of the woods into a camp of cannibals, and they all just kind of stopped what they were doing and stared over at me, and I was like, all right, well, I'll just back up, like, we're cool, don't worry about it. And then they followed me for like so far, like they wouldn't stop following me. So at some point I was like getting hungry and I was injured and I had to stop and heal. And the inventory is also interesting. It's all diegetic, so you take off your backpack and roll it out, and all of the items you have are kind of in front of you on a mat, but time is still ticking when that's going on. So I was like, all right, I'll just stop and like take some painkillers, and I could like see off to the side the cannibal coming up and sniffing me while I was doing this. So it's just like
awful.
I love that shit though. It's like
unnerving.
Yeah, the feeling of Sons of the Forest is, it feels to me like a playable co-op A24 horror movie is what it feels like to me. And I think if you have a group of friends who are into horror and into like co-op or survival games or anything like that, I think this is such a good fit. I think the tempering of expectations to enjoy this game is, I think it's like it's so much about your experience. I read a little bit up on different amounts of playtime that it took people to beat this, and apparently you can work your way through the entirety of the story if you just mainline it in like less than 10 hours, probably like 6, 7, 8 hours, which seems like that's a short playtime for a game that's $30. But I think that to do that is to ignore all of the cool, fun exploration and systemic stuff and the emergent storytelling that happens in this kind of game.
Yeah, these are the games as well that people play again and again and again. It's not just going through that one time or whatever. It's crazy, man. It's like it hit that Venn diagram of like, you know, indie horror games always sell really well on Steam. A good survival craft game always kind of does well as well. Then co-op, you know what I mean? It's just, maybe that's why you've got, 2 million people buying it. It's pretty crazy. Frank, I know you played like the opening couple of hours, and you're new to this series, right? You did not play the original game. Do you have any questions for Jeremy, or do you have any sort of thoughts since you started?
I guess one thing I'm really charmed by is like the secondary story, as Jeremy was kind of putting it, is the game reminds me a lot of like Lost. You crash land and you're uncovering the mystery. I feel like I'm already low on resources. I feel like I'm wasting time. I want to do this over again. But like going into caves is really exciting. Like it feels like The Descent. Like that's one of my favorite horror movies. Like that panic of just like going deeper and deeper in caves. You see creepy stuff. It runs really well. It is very pretty. I do like hiking and wandering in forests, and it felt like, oh, this is like artificial sunlight. Yeah, okay, this feels nice. I guess an interesting question is, where do you find water? Because I have no more water. I have energy drinks, and I have 2 cans left. I just need to explore the map more.
Yeah, you can drink out of the rivers.
Oh.
Yeah, so just go till you see blue. Yeah, I got lucky. I spawned up in the mountains and immediately descended, found a POI, and then there was a river and built a camp right there.
Yeah, I was gonna say, one thing I like is I'm nervous. Like I'm nervous about survival games because it's like I just want to play and run around. I was able to put it down onto peaceful difficulty, so maybe it's more friendlier with the resource management. But one thing I like
or with the cannibals, presumably.
Yeah.
And then one thing I like too is like the inventory doesn't seem punishing. Like you're able to fit a lot of stuff in your backpack. Yeah. That was one thing I was nervous. Like, am I gonna have to be super stingy with it? And then Kelvin or Kevin, whatever his name is, he's collecting stuff for you too.
He's like a mule.
Yeah. And then like what's nice is the game isn't so obvious of where to go, but it does like give you hints of like, oh, there might be something in this area. There might be something in this area. So, and then it has like the Metroidvania thing where it's like, you don't have this item yet, so maybe come back later. I'm like, okay. So now I gotta build a list of things to get. But yeah, I completely avoided the forest. I wasn't even familiar with it, so I didn't even know this was a sequel. I just thought this was an interesting title. But
yeah, smart for them to call it that and not just stick a 2 on the end of it.
Yeah.
It is funny playing this after also playing Choo Choo Charles, because both kind of have a similar like cheeky sense of humor, and it's like, okay, like same thing on an island. There's weird monsters, and it's like, okay, this is kind of similar. I kind of like it.
Yeah, one is made by one person, and in Unreal Engine, and the other one I think Choo Choo was Unreal Engine, and then this was made by now a fairly established team, I guess. I believe this is Unity. So interesting to see how. Like you said, the screenshots I was looking at, the game looks fantastic.
It's beautiful. Yeah, so some of the, if I recall correctly, some of the guys who made The Forest and presumably founded the studio come from like a film background. So I don't know the makeup of the team now. I don't know how much they've grown, but I feel like you can feel a lot of cinematic influence on this. If you look up the inspirations for The Forest, I actually think The Descent was one of them.
Right.
But they were largely inspired by movies, are the things that they cite as their inspirations. And I feel like The Forest and Sons of the Forest very much feel to me like like an art house indie horror movie or something.
According to their website, they're ex-VFX people.
Yeah, that sounds right.
In film, so that makes sense. They have like that sort of cinematic sensibility, but a much more handy technical background if you're going to get into the world of making video games, I guess. That's fascinating. Yeah, they're a crowd. They're in Canada. Vancouver. For some reason, I thought this was European. I don't know why. I guess, if they speak French.
Hey.
If you thought, well, they're not. They're in Vancouver, so who knows?
Canada is the Europe of North America.
Exactly. There you go. So pretty cool. I'm excited to jump into this. I don't know why it wasn't on my radar. I think about 2 weeks ago, I was like, I forgot that Forest sequel's coming out, and then it just like completely took over everything. Cool, yeah, we might do a video on it later this week as well, see if we can get some co-op. We're all pretty busy at the moment, but we'll see if we can get something up like that over on Crew. Any final thoughts on The Forest, gents?
It's really cool. I think there is such a void of, it seems like there's a lot of good co-op indie games that come out, and it seems like there's a lot of good horror games that come out. But in terms of like indie co-op horror, I feel like there's only a handful that I've played that I've really enjoyed. There are I haven't played like the Backrooms, which I know is a very popular one. In fact,
I haven't played that either.
Sometimes we get messages in the Noclip Discord because I think one of those games is called Noclip, or one of the levels in the Backrooms game is called Noclip.
Oh, it's that one about like liminal spaces.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
I need to.
It's based on a creepypasta.
Exactly.
I remember this.
I need to play that so that when people wander into our Discord help center, very confused about why they can't find a group for this co-op indie horror game, we can direct them in the right way.
There's also a VR game, I think, called Noclip now, and there's Noclip.website, I think, which has all the game worlds that you can fly around. You can use Noclip on, which is cool. We don't. I'm not going to stand here and say we own the term Noclip. I stole it from fucking 90s video games. So, knock yourselves out, everyone. There you go. Sons of the Forest. Excited to check it out myself. I'm going to talk a little bit about PlayStation Virtual Reality 2, if that would be all right. The PSVR 2 came out last week. I had it arrive on Wednesday. Got it all set up. I did have the original PSVR. I really enjoyed it. But like a lot of VR stuff, I sort of played it a lot for about 2 months and then largely fell off when software seemed to stop coming out, or software on that system is so ubiquitous that like if it comes out and it's on PC, I'm going to play it on PC. Like, the Vive. And also, Half-Life Alyx really was a bit of a spanner in the works when it came to expectations with VR games to a certain extent. Although that is almost 3 years old now. That was a COVID game. That was a 2020 special, right at the start of the pandemic. It was the last thing I did in the studio before we got out of there. So PSVR 2, I ordered when it came, when I kind of pre-ordered it and we're like, maybe I'll get it because this is pretty expensive. Maybe I'll get it. We'll see. And I put it down because this is $550. It is $600 with the pack that has the Horizon game, Call of the Mountain, with it, which arguably isn't much of a deal. It's still $50 for the game. So I'm not quite sure the value proposition on that. So everything that I'm about to say has to come with that huge asterisk hanging over the top of this thing of whether or not it's worth it. I could obviously justify it a bit and saying like, look, we'll talk about it on the podcast. Maybe we'll do a video about it. Maybe we'll end up covering games that are on this and you should have it, yada, yada, yada. So I got it and I booted it up, and what I'll say first of all, before I get into the games, is the feel of this thing, the like form factor, is easily the best, lightest, most comfortable VR headset I've ever put on. It's just very well put together, like Sony stuff tends to be. High build quality. I would say the blurriness or trying to get your more so with this than the Vive. I've had issues with like condensation on the lenses and a bit of blurriness and stuff like that. But it's doing so much crazy tech. So first of all, it's doing eye tracking, which is wild, and I don't know if they're doing like depth of field things with that while I'm playing. It's kind of hard to tell, but it seems to come up a lot in terms of, you know, where you're looking, and navigating menus and things like that is super handy. It also kind of, I don't know, I imagine it's helping them configure a lot that way. The build on it's easy. You can pop it on and not even have the television on, which I've done a couple of times in the living room at nighttime. I've just put the thing on my head and sat there like an absolute fucking psychopath while my wife is coming in and out of the room. She's playing Pharaoh a lot on the PC behind me. She's been enjoying the new HD remake of that. And then it has this crazy technology, which is a little button on the bottom of it that you press, and it straight up is like a webcam of where of your room. Of like, there's a camera on the front of this thing because it's doing inside out tracking. So when you configure this thing, you look around the room and it scans the room and and then makes your space and all that sort of stuff. But at any time, like if I felt like something weird crawl across my legs while I'm playing a video game, I could hit this button and I would see a monochrome version of reality and hopefully one of my cats lying down on my leg and not one of those forest guys turning up. So like from that perspective, it's a cool piece of kit and it works really well, and it has a bunch of features that now I would kind of miss in another VR headset. In terms of like the fidelity, it's super good. Like the games are looking super sharp. It doesn't look better or worse than the Vive, I would say, but then I can't remember because it's been a hot minute since I've turned the Vive on, which is just the way of virtual reality things, I think. So I played pretty much all the games involved in it. There's a little bit of chum in there. There's like a NHL pretend to be a quarterback thing, which is not wonderful. There is a game called Puzzle Places, which I actually really like, which is basically a 3D like jigsaw puzzle game where you're building like there's one that's like a Chinese or Japanese, I don't know, Chinese or Japanese, apologies everyone, front of a shop that you're like building in your hands and putting the pieces together. There's I think it's Mont Saint-Michel, I think it is. It's the castle that's on the beach, in the island beach in northern France. There's one of those that you can put together, so I really enjoyed that one. There's demos for all these as well, so you can download like 10 demos when you get the thing and then decide what to get. The pack-in game Horizon Call of the Mountain is definitely like this is a high budget thing. It looks really good. It's really weird meeting Aloy because she's quite small. I was like, oh, I'm like a foot taller than Aloy. She's like, okay, everyone. But I couldn't tell if I had configured it wrong or if she was just like small. But it's really weird because she like gets in your face and like you have these, and the animation's really good and all that sort of stuff. It's mostly a game about climbing. There's a bit of like arrow shooting and stuff, but you're doing a lot of like climbing over precipices and stuff. And like I'm in the room just like with my hands in the air climbing. It's very silly. So I've enjoyed a bit of that, and Moss Book 2 is in there as well. I loved the first Moss on PSVR. It's absolutely brilliant. It's a game where you're basically sitting down in a chair and the game world is like around you like a diorama, and you're controlling the main character who's a tiny mouse, but you're also able to like pick up things in the world. So you can like pick up move over this thing that she can stand on, and you can then move the mouse onto it and then move her across the level. It's really cool. It's like you're an omnipotent force within the world, and it's very much like a diorama. It's like everything's small, so it feels very cool, like you're sort of looking in a doll's house or something. So the sequel to that's super good. But the game that has convinced me of the wonder of PlayStation VR, that I've played maybe 20 hours of since last week, which was maybe my least favorite game of 2022, a game that on this podcast I spent a large amount of time complaining about it and whinging about it and saying, how the fuck would anyone enjoy this game? It is so pretentious. Its intro is unskippable and outrageous. The cars don't even drive properly. Why would you want to play this ridiculous game? Gran Turismo 7 is absolutely fucking brilliant on the PlayStation VR2. I cannot stop playing it. It is just outrageous. I don't know what it is. I've been trying to like figure it out. I think there's a couple of things. I think the detail in those games is largely lost on me because I don't really care about the insides of cars. I think, or the outside, quite honestly. I think it's novel when you see a car that, like, I used to have a Mustang. I had the cheapest version of the Mustang. I had like the EcoBoost, which before it got stolen and by meth heads. But like when I drive the GT, which is like I think 6 times more expensive, it looks like the inside of my car, and that's cool, right? But usually when I'm playing these games, I don't really care. When you're in when you're in the detail in these levels, when you're in these cars, when you're looking around on the inside, it's absolutely insane. The levels look incredible. Like that game has always looked good and had good like sunsets and night times and all that sort of stuff. It's really, really cool. But the thing is, and I don't know, the thing that like pushes this over the edge to me, because I literally have a race sim setup. I love race sims. I've played race sims for years. I really like Project Cars. I've done some iRacing. I played the F1 games with all the sim stuff turned off. I would say I am like mostly in the sim pool when it comes to playing driving games. And I have the race seat they sent us for that Extra Life thing we did back in 2020, right? What's in storage now, but like I use that a lot when I before we moved out here, like at least like one night a week I'd play on that thing. And I've done VR as well in racing games. Back at GameSpot, we did a bunch of features on them. At home, I've done it as well. But there's something about Gran Turismo and the way in like the weight of these cars, which is just perfect in virtual reality. Like the way that like torque works, the feedback you get on the controller, the way the controller handles, like I actually don't want to play this on a wheel because Gran Turismo to me has always been tuned, or at least its controller has always been tuned really well because it doesn't just like, I don't know, arbitrarily go left, right. So you're doing a lot of like quick, like because the way Analog 6 works, it's very hard to like halfway push it when you're doing driving games. GT's always done really well at like doing what you mean to do, not what you're actually doing on the controller. And with that, in virtual reality, the weight of the car when you're taking turns, the sound of the car when you've like added upgrades to it, you can feel them. There's also force feedback on the headset, which is completely crazy, which I wasn't expecting either. And I've just like completely fallen in love with it. I just can't put the thing down. I'll play a bunch of races and I'll get my little driver's license and then I'll go and do a couple of races and I'll be like, it's midnight, I should probably go to bed. And then it'll be like 1:30 and I've done 5 more races and I've had these like great final lap down to the I had one where I was like literally I won by like a foot maybe, and we were like going down the straight and like the other car's right there to my right and I'm like looking in the mirror at this motherfucker like, come on, I gotta beat you. Like it's great. I absolutely love it. So apologies to everyone at Polyphony. I was wrong. It turns out all I needed was a $600 bucket on my head to enjoy your video game.
What's the force feedback like when is your whole head vibrating?
I'm trying to remember. It's like it's subtle enough that I don't notice when it's happening, but it's giving me it's giving me good feedback. It's like a rumble, I would say, similar to the DualSense on the PS5. It has that like. When it was raining in Astro's Playroom and you just had that little...
Yeah.
It's kind of like, it's that sort of subtle stuff. I'm trying to remember exactly what it does in GT or anything.
It's a good sign, though, that you're not like, it's not, your memory of it isn't, and my whole head vibrates. You know what I mean? Like it's subtle enough that you're getting the impact of it without being able to place it. Yeah,
I wish I could remember what exactly it was, but... and the DualSense works really good. The resistance on the triggers, of course, because it's like, a driving game and all that.
Yeah, it sounds like fun. VR is so funny because it's like, I always think of it as this medium that's kind of, like, if Half-Life Alyx didn't push it through, nothing will or something. Yeah. But every time I boot up a VR game, I have so much fun with it. I just have this like this internal resistance to throwing it on, but I always have a blast when I do.
Well, it's kind of hard, right? Because you have to, if I wanted to do my race sim with the VR headset, I had to turn on the computer. I had to like mouse over to Steam and boot up iRacing or Project Cars or whatever it is, and then sort of have a mouse beside me in the rig, because I can't do a lot of the menus with that, and then get the VR headset and put that on. and make sure that it's not freaking out with all the different monitors and all that sort of stuff. This thing, I like walk into my living room, I turn on the PlayStation. Half the time I don't even turn the television on, and then I just turn on the headset. It vibrates actually when it turns on, which is to let you know that it's like I'm awake. You put the thing on, it does a really quick like, do you want a room scan or do you just want to like sit here and play? And it'll be like, yeah, sit here and play, cool. And then the PlayStation menu loads up, and that's it. And it's just there in front of you. And then you can, once you're in a game, you know, most of the menus in GT are just like, you know, a screen in front of you. And I go to the fucking coffee shop man, and he tells me, hey, go find 4-wheel drive cars from Japan, and here's 15 fucking PDFs about, you know, why you should give a fuck. And then I'm just like spam like XXXXXXXXXX, just get me to the car, I do not care, sir. I do not care. I do not subscribe to your newsletter about hot hatches from Europe in the 80s. I could not give a shit. Yes, the Titanic went down in the 70s, whatever. Just keep going. And then once you get into the car, it does like the and then once it puts you in the car, you're like, oh shit, yeah. Like, here's the other thing. I don't know what game this was. It might have been Tony Hawk. Frank will know all about this. There was a game I realized you can use Spotify on the PS5. You can just play your own music. And it works super good, where it's just in the music tab on when you hit the like PlayStation button and go to the bottom. There's just like a little music icon, and it'll just straight up like populate with your most recent Spotify stuff. And if it's playing, you can even open Spotify on your phone and just like pick a song. So this is like this. I don't know if this makes me feel like an absolute loser or not. I'm not quite sure, but it's making me, I have trepidation in saying these words and putting them into the public sphere. But on Monday night, I had a fucking wonderful time playing Gran Turismo 7 and listening to Meteora by Linkin Park.
Hell yeah.
From start
that
to
rocks.
finish.
Yes.
No, that's awesome, dude. That's like an FMV from like a forum from 2004.
Totally. I was making my own AMV of Gran Turismo, yeah, and it was like, you know, fucking Don't Stay is playing, and I'm just like, yeah.
No, that's unironically cool as fuck.
Yeah, I think Meteora had its like, I think they released a 20th anniversary version of it this year or something like that, with like a new song as well. So yeah, I was just like, this is a fucking good time. I had Static X playing and Deftones and a bunch of stuff. I was just like burning down the track with it. Yeah, so in terms of like pickup and playability for a VR thing, this thing is head and shoulders above anything, including PSVR1, which I feel like for whatever reason had a little bit of, I don't know, configuration or something. I forget what it was. There was something about that one that wasn't as fast as this one is.
You needed the camera. My camera always fell off my TV. I hated like using. I mean, it was nice, but it was always such a. It never was 100% like satisfaction. It was always frustrating. Right. I also got motion sick playing it. Like, that was before I had glasses, so I think I'd be okay now. But like hearing that, so is this true? You just have to put on the headset, it scans, and then that's it. You don't have to set up like cameras around your room or anything.
No, nothing. It's inside out tracking. So there's like 3 cameras on the front. I want to say it feels like there is. You can't really tell unless you're staring at the front of the thing. If you want to set up the room scale thing, if you have like changed your setup, it might like ask you to rescan sometimes, but it's pretty quick, and it's also like the most like sci-fi ass thing in the world, because it's like a monochrome version of your room, because it's the camera and you're looking around and it's going like and like covering the walls in like blue polygons. It's like very, you know, and you look at like there's like a cat on the ground, it'll go polygons around the cat, you know what I mean? And then it'll tell you. But like, because a lot of the games are just like, do you want to sit down? Like GT, I'm not jumping around my room. I don't care. It'll just be like, oh yeah, where's your play area? And it's just like, it's basically a circle around you that is changing based on where your head is. So you just like, oh, I'll just sit up straight and then press the button, and then it's like, cool, all right. And the other thing it does is, which sort of I don't know what the word is for this, but like kind of like resetting your equilibrium or whatever. Sometimes when you're playing these games, the menu is like not quite where you want it to be if you're sitting straight. So to center it, all you do is hold down like the start button or whatever is now the option button on PlayStation, and it literally just goes like click and to where you are looking, which is super handy for like the the one or two times where things in VR, you lean forward when the level loaded and it thought your head was there, and then to get a drink, and then I'll just hold down Option and it'll pop back. Weirdly enough, I was able to get a drink, and I was able to like turn the volume down my television by hitting that little button that had the camera. I would say use a straw. Be a better way of doing it instead of like
pouring
to, like,
Pepsi
lift it up
into your headset.
into your $600 bucket.
It's in my eyes.
Yeah, it would not be good.
I love the idea of you toggling to the camera mode, like in an emergency, like there's a burglar in your house and you're like still wearing the headset.
I need to bring that forest shit in here.
Like a cannibal wanders into your house. But I just love the idea of you put yourself in that person's, you break into someone's house and they stand up and they're wearing like a fucking HMD on their head. You'd think Sam
think
Fisher's
you can't
in
see
there.
them.
Yeah, exactly. But then you can see them even better because you're wrapping them in polygons.
My daughter thought it was weird. She was like, "Why do you have goggles on your face?" Because she walked in the room and I was just wearing this thing and the TV wasn't on. So she was like, "What the fuck?" So I gave her a go and she was like, "Whoa!" I put her in the car and she was like trying to like crawl up on the dashboard and shit. It was pretty.
That's
funny.
really cute.
It was it was a good time. But you're right. I was playing really late last night. The night before, it's like 1:00, and I was like, I gotta look around. You get the sense you just need to like check out the room for a second. You're like, oh shit, I've been in this thing for like 2 hours.
Yeah.
And then I looked around and it was like, okay, everything's okay. You have to have the lights on, which is good because otherwise the inside out tracking doesn't work very good. So I had a light on, but when I went back to the game, I was like, well, now I'm scared.
Now I'm in my own head. Yeah, I VR like fucks with me mentally, not in like a profound way, but in more subtle ways. Like after I do it for a while, I've heard other people say this. You feel, especially with Half-Life Alyx, because when you see items in Half-Life Alyx, you flick your wrist to pick them up from a distance. I feel like when I take off the headset after playing Alyx for a long time, I would like my brain would tell me I could interact with objects from a distance, and it's so weird how. Or not only that, but the other thing that I noticed is the way my brain tries to perceive screens. After I do VR for a while, when I look at like a television or a computer monitor, my eyes are trying to see through it like there's depth to it.
Right.
And it freaks me out.
That's wild. Yeah. Like, because that's basically what's happening.
Yeah, because you're looking through the monitor. Yeah.
Looking through, it's like a secret eye.
Yeah, exactly. In fact, I could not do a secret eye puzzle until after I had tried VR.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Because your optic nerve or whatever, or your eye muscles have figured out how to.
Yeah, no one ever told me. Like people would just be like, "Oh, you just cross your eyes," which is kind of how you do a magic eye, but not really. Like what you're actually trying to do is like defocalize and look through it almost. Like the magic eye is like the halfway point of distance towards the real image.
Yeah, totally.
So when I tried Oculus Rift, whatever, like 10 years ago or something, I did a secret eye puzzle like a month later, and I was like, "Why can I suddenly do this?" And it clicked.
That's so funny. Yeah. Wow. There you go. Learn how to do secret eye puzzles finally with the PlayStation VR2. I think that's it. There's no other, I don't have any feedback. I'm going to try to put together a video about it, just kind of talking about it in general up on Crew. But if anyone has any questions, feel free to put them in the comments or shoot us an email. I wanted to make one little correction. When I played Atomic Heart last week, I kind of spoke to how linear and small the levels are. Basically, right after I got out of this area, it started to open up a bit more. So, redacting some of my, I hope I caveated my experience with that game by saying I was still in the first, I think I was like 3 hours maybe in or something like that. But yeah, it does open up a bit more as well. I have more to play on Atomic Heart, so I won't say anything else about it until I've gotten a bit further. But suddenly we are just awash in video games. There's just like loads going on. I told you my wife was playing that Pharaoh remake. I think I got a quote from her at one stage. I'm not sure if I deleted it. I was like, come on the podcast. She could not give less of a fuck about coming on the podcast. She was like, I can't talk about it. She was like, it's good. What else do you want me to say? So she's been enjoying it a lot. I would say it seems like a very Age of Empires 2D kind of, they did the due diligence of making it look really good and have sort of modern day housekeeping or modern day
like quality of life.
Quality of life, thank you. It's funny how housekeeping and quality of life are both stuck in the same part of my brain. That's where it went. For some reason, it doesn't have the mini map that was in the original.
Oh,
and there's
really?
been a bunch of people on the forums and Steam kind of asking about that. So I think Emu published it. I don't know who the devs are, but apparently they're going to work on that. But yeah, she said it's solid, not as buggy as the original was, and she's been having blast. Looks like it has all the missions. So if you're a Pharaoh fan,
I loved the original Pharaoh. That was one of those games that I
Yeah.
got at like a Scholastic book fair where they like sell you games at school. Because in the like early to mid 90s, all software was educational software. Like there was for some
Yeah.
reason like
in Carta,
yeah, like teachers and parents were like, "Oh yeah, no, just like you should get on the computer." Like it's, I mean, in a way, they were right that like computer literacy is one of the most marketable, imaginable skills 20 years later. But like, yeah, just the idea of being on a computer was like, "Oh, this is educational because it's like computers."
Yeah.
So there was a lot of times, they do Scholastic Book Fair and they would sell you like, I mean, I guess Pharaoh's more educational than Heroes of Might and Magic 3, but I don't know.
Yeah,
I mean,
there is some combat in Pharaoh,
Yeah, a
right?
little bit.
When you can get, I think it's raiders.
Yeah.
I think happen in it, but there's no. It doesn't have the. It's very much a city builder more than a. Age of Empires is a. You're building that city so you can fund an army.
Yeah.
Like that's the reason. Whereas Pharaoh is more of a. It's not quite Sim City, but it's because it's human scale kind of a bit more because it's about individuals and attracting people. But yeah, it's cool. I had a total blind spot for Pharaoh until my wife brought it up like 5 years ago or so, and I was like, I've never heard of this game. And I looked it up on GOG and it was there, and that's where she played it for a bunch of time. I think it's because I was trying to get her into Age of Empires. She had played a bit of that as a kid, but she'd mostly played Pharaoh. Yeah, speaking of Age of Empires, we will have an Age of Empires documentary coming to Noclip in a little bit. A bunch of other stuff too. The Like a Dragon Ishin playtest with our journey into the world of pleasure vegetables with the local ladies. Go check that out if you want to. We are finished editing Redacted, the big studio documentary. It's very silly at this point. I think last week all of us made it pretty obvious what it was. In part, one day we will be able to announce it officially, and then we will be very naughty dogs. Anyway, all right, it's fucking done now. Vampire Survivors as well. The puppet has arrived. Go check out the little video on the main channel if you want to see our ridiculous Vampire Survivors puppet.
the puppet is so big. I was in the studio
It's
filming
so
the other day, and I had already watched the video of you managing it, and it was startling how giant it is. It's huge.
Yeah, it's really something else. Did you engage with the puppet?
I texted a friend of mine, like my best friend, a picture of it, and he said, "Is that a puppet of you?" And I was very insulted. And by insulted, I mean flattered.
I hadn't thought about that. Yeah, you're always wearing capes.
Yeah. I'm always dressed in
people,
black,
yeah.
and I have a goatee and long hair, so I guess I was kind of asking for it.
That's pretty funny.
He thought that's what I was
hadn't thought about
alluding
that.
to, and I was like, it didn't occur to me until you said that.
So he thought you had a puppet made of yourself.
No, he was fucking with me, but he thought I sent it to him because I sent him a picture of the puppet, and he knows what I look like, so he was like, "Oh, is that you?" And I was like, "Oh,
Wow.
He was like, "How have you not thought of this? It's like identical."
Jeremy Jane to the sick burn ward.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolute killer. We also played a game today. We can't talk about it yet. It's under embargo, but we'll have some sort of impressions up on Monday, I believe, for that. We had a lot of fun playing it, but we can't talk about it. And last thing I said again, just to mention the 100 Cars and Stunt Derby. If you're a patron, hit me up. We'll send you an alpha key. Come at noon Pacific on Friday, and we're going to try and get 100 people. We will be recording it as well. For posterity, and see if we can get 100 cars around. And yeah, I don't know. It should be a prize for whoever wins that race. That's insane. That's like battle royale, basically, at this stage. Yeah. Before we sign off for the day, anything else crossed your mind, gents? Any other games you've been playing and you're looking forward to? I'm starting to feel like, there's like a lot of games I have not completed that I started in the past 3 weeks.
Yeah, Frank, what do you got?
Wolong Fallen Dynasty comes out Friday. Another Game Pass game, but it's by Koei Tecmo and Team Ninja, so they did Neo. It's also got like the Dynasty Warriors characters. So I'm excited for this. Will this be a game I stick with? I don't know because I'm in the middle of like 12 different games, but if it's on Game Pass, it's like going to Blockbuster. It's like, yeah, I'll try this out. So
Is it like a Neo? Is it play like a Neo?
I think it's like action
okay.
RPG hack and slash grindy, probably a little challenging, but I'll find out. So by next week, I'll have some hours on it to talk about. But I love shit like that.
I played a very good demo for a game called, I want to double check that I'm reading this correctly, Vernal Edge. Vernal Edge.
Vernal Edge.
It is a Metroidvania. It reminds me a lot of Hollow Knight, but the combat is incredibly snappy. It has this weird system where you can charge up a meter by doing hits on enemies, and once that's charged up, you can throw your weapon at an enemy and kind of dive attack them to heal yourself.
Oh, cool.
So it's got kind of this Bloodborne-y feel where, like, if you're in a desperate situation, instead of pulling back and falling on your heels, it incentivizes you to go as hard as possible fighting to stay alive when you're on the precipice of death.
Interesting art style. 2D, and obviously like retro inspired, but like kind of doesn't really look like anything I can point to.
Yeah, you know what it reminds
Is there
me
some
of?
obvious reference on the Nintendo I don't know about?
I couldn't clock a specific reference, but I kind of got the general vibe. Not like, it doesn't look like this, but it kind of felt like remember Mischief Makers?
I don't.
Oh, Mischief
Do you
Makers
remember
was
that, Frank?
so good. It was an N64
it's
game.
awesome.
Yeah, it kind of reminded me a little bit of like pixel art Mischief Makers. Like if Mischief Makers and Owlboy had a child.
Oh yeah, okay. Well, I know Owlboy, but that's probably just because of you.
It's possible.
Mischief Makers. Wow, look at that.
Oh, Mischief
Yeah,
Makers
it's
is
super
so good.
This is like your guys' Wiz and Live.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Mischief Makers is awesome.
Yeah, that game rocks.
It's so good.
What a weird. That is of an era. You can nail down that like to a year almost.
Yeah.
The box art as well on Mischief Makers. Cool. What was that called again? Something
Vernal Edge. Yeah, it's just a
Vernal
demo. But it also has a 2D Metroidvania, but it has a 3D kind of like JRPG looking overworld, which I thought was really cool.
Oh.
So you complete the first area in the first like 10 minutes or whatever, and very quickly it boots you out to a 3D overworld, which was kind of an interesting genre mashup, I guess. I would not expect that in like a Hollow Knight presenting game.
It's what Koei Tecmo are like decided to release all their games in Q1 because they also Wild Hearts. I don't think any of us played it, and I'm not particularly interested in it. Kind of Monster Hunter-esque
Oh yeah.
kind of thing came out 2 weeks ago, and also I'm pretty sure they're putting out a new Fatal Frame game next month.
Really?
Yeah.
Am I crazy?
I think that came out, or yeah, that I feel like they're always remastering a Fatal Frame game.
Oh, maybe that's what it is. Yeah, oh,
Yeah.
here it is. Fatal Frame Project Zero Mask of the Lunar Eclipse.
Ooh.
Yes, this is an old game. Sorry, this is an old Fatal Frame. Is that was Fatal Frame? Was that just its original subtitle? Mask of the Lunar. I don't know. I can never tell.
They put Maiden of Blackwater back in October, and then I don't know. There's a handful of them. The one that's like really good is Project Butterfly, the second one on Xbox back like 20 years ago, and then I guess there's been sequels, but they're
This
pretty
is
cool
number
games.
4. It looks like. So this came out in 2008.
Okay,
yeah.
yeah.
So this
Wow.
is not a. This is probably. This is Xbox
I've never played
360
any of
maybe,
these
was it,
games.
or-
They look super good.
Oh,
Fatal Frame.
yeah, Fatal Frame 2, Jeremy. You will lose your.
The second one is the one to start with?
It's so
Okay,
good.
all right.
Yes.
All right.
Get
Yeah.
your camera obscura out.
Yeah, it's so sick. It's so sick.
Yeah, you'd love this. You're a camera dude. This
Yeah.
is like.
You know, it's funny.
this is
You would think that. For some reason, I'm very averse to playing camera games. Like Umurangi
It's ridiculous
Generation is a game that's been recommended to me a bajillion times, and it seems right up my
Okay.
alley in terms of like theme and the presentation style and aesthetic and all these things. I just like, there's something about like working with cameras that. I don't know, it must just be the work thing, because for other people they're like, oh, I get to like play around with exposure and depth of field, and for me I'm like, I just like when I am doing those things, it's like my brain is not in a mode of play.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I mean?
That's not where you're at. Yeah. I can appreciate
Yeah,
that.
I do need to just give it a shot though.
So I think I figured this out. Apologies to the handful of Fatal Frame people who are, screaming at their podcast right now. When this came out in 2008, it was a Wii exclusive game. So this is coming out to everything this March 9th. So next week. So Switch, PS4, PS5, Windows, Xbox One, Series X and S. you can finally play Fatal Frame Mask of the Lunar Eclipse, or it's called Fatal Frame / Project Zero on Steam. I've done enough research on Fatal Frame for tonight, so I'm not going to look at any
Oh,
more.
it's co-directed, co-written, and designed by Suda51 of Grasshopper Manufacture fame.
Oh
Oh,
wow.
it was
That's
it?
really cool.
This is a Suda joint?
Yeah.
Damn. Oh, one random thing I want to like play eventually. I just started watching Samurai Champloo.
Oh,
which
hell
was
yeah.
an anime like 2004, 2005. It was, like basically the
Ex-Cowboy Bebop, wasn't
Yes,
it?
yeah. So
Yes.
Shinichi Watanabe or whatever. So the same guy
Yes.
did Cowboy Bebop. That's his like samurai hip hop version of that. I found out Suda51 directed a Samurai Champloo game
What?
between
Really?
Killer
Oh,
Killer
yeah.
7 and No More Heroes, and it looks I mean, it's
Oh.
an anime game, but it looks sick. Like so I want to check that out as I watch more of Samurai Champloo. But and then watching Samurai Champloo got me into, I don't know how to say his name, Nujabes,
Nujabes.
whatever. Amazing,
Oh, yeah.
like the best music. It's
Yeah,
like holy
dude,
crap.
Nujabes is a legend.
So-
Rest in peace.
So
Is that a
good.
person or a genre?
It's a person.
No, it's
Uh,
a person, but
Nujabes.
Yeah, he made like hip hop beats, but sampling a lot of like Asian sounds and instruments and stuff. So it has this kind of like, yeah, it was if
It's like your Wu-Tang.
yeah,
kind
if
of-
you watch Toonami in the 2000s, you've heard Nujabes.
yeah.
it's like the original like lo-fi hip hop jazz beats. It's like it's just that, but it's like he's the OG. It's so
Oh,
good.
yeah.
It's so yeah. It's really really sick. Yeah.
Looking ahead, there is a just to see if there's anything else on the what's coming soon. Valheim apparently is getting a 1.0 launch on March 14th.
Oh, wow.
I did not know that was the case. I wonder if that is still the case, or if that was a date that they plucked out of their hair back in 2001 or something. I can't really see much else. Honestly, there's a game called IB, so I don't know if it's about irritable bowels, but it is a freeware survival horror game for Windows. So there you go. It's got a Wikipedia page though, so it must have something going on. It's got a bizarrely detailed Wikipedia page. It's got a cult following. There we go. It's got a cult following. IB.
Oh, can I gotta shout out a very good YouTube video that I saw this week.
Yeah.
It is, I believe the title is The Wiggle That Killed Tarkov. It's something, if you search Wiggle Killed Tarkov, you'll find it. It is this video, this guy seems like a smaller YouTuber who's bigger in the Tarkov community, I guess. So in Tarkov, I guess there's a real problem with cheaters. Like people in the Tarkov community suspected that there was a cheater in basically every raid possible. And so
Okay.
this guy downloaded cheats and did like a whole deep dive investigative journalism thing of basically like committing to playing with cheats but never killing anyone, never interfering. So essentially like having cheats but never using them to grief anyone or win or anything like that. The most ethical way you could possibly cheat. And
Wow.
and so when in these cheats in the UI that it like lays over the game, you can not only see people's like skeleton of where they are through the walls anywhere on the map, but you can also see their kill death ratio and a bunch of other stuff. So he would go up to
that's
people who
wild.
had really unlikely KD ratios and who he suspected were cheating. And look at them through the wall and basically started to kind of suss out the types of behavior that cheaters would use and started following people when he thought they were cheating. And they would notice him. Like they would be, you could tell they were wall hacking too because they would look directly at him and like track his movement through the wall, even if he was making zero
Yes.
noise, crouching, all these things. And eventually he realized that so there's like in Tarkov, you can like lean to peek around corners. And so in the Tarkov community, there's this thing called like the wiggle, where you like lean left, right, left, right, left, right.
Right.
And it's basically a nonverbal way of saying like, I'm friendly, I'm not going to shoot you. And so he
Gotcha.
would do the wiggle at people through walls, and they would wiggle back and acknowledge that they
Oh,
could
that's
see
good.
him. And so he started following people around and like talking to them and basically just like doing kind of like off the cuff interviews with people who were also cheating.
Oh, that's amazing.
And basically he said like every single game he played, there was someone hacking.
Really?
And so he put together this whole big expose about how prevalent the cheating is, how he basically found someone cheating in every single match he played over a long period of time. It was pretty damning.
That's crazy. That's like yes, the wiggle that killed Tarkov. That's a good way of putting it. Is it Goat?
Yes,
is that the
that
original
sounds
G?
right.
So the issue that I have found is that there are a lot of like folks like XQC and stuff who have done React videos. Like Summit has one here as well, which also have hundreds of thousands of views.
Oh, to that
and they're obviously
video?
on. Exactly, so that there's links to the original. I think I found it. It's G08.
Yes.
He's got about 68,500 subs at the moment. He's got
That's like
1.2 million
double the
views.
subs when I watched this video. So
really?
Because his other videos are, I think they're all Tarkov related, but they're way smaller numbers. So I think this was his first big video.
This is very cool.
It's really, really good. And like
42 minutes long.
I've never
man.
played Tarkov, and I watched the entire video.
That's cool. And now you never will.
And now I never
You'll
will.
suspect.
Yeah, yeah. It's like it's hard to watch. In the intro, he basically says like, if you play Tarkov and enjoy it, just don't watch this video. Just don't worry about it.
Okay.
Because
Yeah.
it really does ruin it. Because it's one of those games where it's like, you know, the fun of extraction shooters is the negative feedback loop. It's gambling. It's taking the loot that you've accrued, putting it on the line, and then going out. And you know, I mean, you wouldn't go to a casino if you knew that there were people who were counting cards there every time. So
Right.
yeah.
And this is really, God, that's wild.
It's really good.
That's, it really does completely kill
Yeah.
that. It's crazy. Yeah, wow, that's incredible. Yes, the wiggle that killed Tarkov. I'm going to check that out. Yeah, really interesting stuff. Thanks for sharing. I'm going to enjoy that one. That's podcast this week. Thanks to everyone for hanging out. I don't know what we're going to do next week. I'm on the road. I'm going to Kitsap County to hopefully this time for the third attempt to do our Dwarf Fortress documentary. We have been foiled by COVID on 2 separate occasions. The first time, me getting my debut run out of COVID, and then the second time being some of the folks up there. So they were at DICE, so I checked in on them to make sure that they're all okay, because I know some folks at DICE, Tim Schafer got COVID, and some other folks too, I assume. But they seem like they're okay, so I'm hunkering down for the next week. Not that I do much anyway at this stage, but just keeping it chill, and hopefully I'll get up there. We're also going to do Choo Choo Charles up there as well, which I'm very excited about. That should be fun. But we'll figure something else out. We'll figure something out next week. It might be a Patreon-only pod next week if we do something a bit outlandish or on the road. But otherwise, yeah, for another podcast, we posted that episode 115 with 2 Player Productions, which you can check out right now if you haven't already. That's a podcast, folks. Thanks so much for hanging out. Thanks, gents, as ever, for talking about video games. Go check out Sons of the Forest, everyone, and The Wiggle That Killed Tarkov, and Stunt Derby on Friday at noon. And we'll see you next time. Bye.